So the one and only Neon Knight, a friend, dare I say a friend of the channel, who knows? But he, funnily enough, he was actually at an event I just was at like a couple weeks ago with the one and only Sotobi. This was a really cool thing because we got to go out to, let's see the picture he posted of us. We got to go out to New York City and we got to try Kingdom Come Deliverance. And I'll be able to talk about that soonish. That's all I can say. But we went out there and had a really, really good time. Lord P2, Cog, Wolfheart, Neon, me, Sotobi. It was a really good time. But when we were out there, I was actually talking, I was talking to Neon and Wolfheart, because we were like, this was on the day of the Game Awards. Okay. So like Game Awards is in like 6 hours from now, from when this picture was taken. And we were all like, well, I'm getting on a flight. Like I left from this venue straight to the airport in Newark and took off. Like it was a tight turnaround. So I was on a plane during the Game Awards and we both were saying like, there's no way there's anything Witcher related revealed at the Game Awards, right? Like there's no way. Well, there was a way. And sure enough, it did drop. And so all of us were kind of playing catch up with this, which is a little funny. But Neon, who is really, really in deep with The Witcher, made a video, posted it a few days ago, describing The Witcher 4 and what the books really say about Ciri. Because there's been accusations about CDPR, about the inclusion of Ciri as a Witcher, people concerned about the lore, people concerned about many things that they saw in the trailer. And one thing Neon is very good at is doing the deeply, deeply researched thing to just answer the question. And so hopefully this clearly answers the question of whether this can work or whether this makes sense with the clear references outlined in it. Okay, let's see. Neon, take it away.
Has been revealed, and Ciri is officially our new protagonist. Not just Ciri though, but Ciri as a Witcher who somehow, after the events of Witcher 3, undertook the Trial of the Grasses, which if you don't remember, is the brutal week-long process where children, often orphans, were forcibly administered viruses, herbs, mutagens...
Singing with the bunny ears. Very serious topic, and Carol's like, hold on, let me adjust. It's just funny.
...and potions that mutated them into Witchers. 60 to 70% of those subjected to the trial died, and even then only a fraction of the children who did survive actually became Witchers and received their medallions, because many of the other trial survivors lost their minds from the pain or were otherwise crippled during the process. This trial, though, is what Ciri went through to go from the optimistic, very non-traditional Witcheress who hadn't undergone the mutations at the end of Witcher 3, to the hardened cat-eyed Cirilla we're reintroduced to in the Witcher 4 trailer. Now, that trailer has understandably led to a lot of questions, especially if you care at all about the lore. And
I think this is part of the difference is, I think people, granted, some of them have probably not played The Witcher 3. They're just kind of hopping on this bandwagon to talk about it. But I do think there are plenty of people who did play The Witcher 3, but it's just been long enough. So maybe there's some misunderstandings or forgetfulness where people think, oh, well, did she receive the mutations already? Like they're trying to remember exactly timelines and whether things had happened or hadn't happened. So seeing her much more gruff, and of course she has a different, like deeper voice now. All of that is very intentional based on what has happened between The Witcher 3 and now, but I don't think all of the people that were upset about this didn't necessarily, like, weren't just hopping on the hate bandwagon for the sake of it. I think some people were just honestly misremembering things.
And those questions have mostly been getting responded to with, well, to be nice, I'll just say inaccurate answers. So I really felt like this was a video I needed to make, that this was a video worth making. If you know me, you know I love The Witcher, and I just want to get the facts out there. What do the books, and while we're at it, CDPR's previous games, actually say about female Witchers, and about Ciri potentially becoming one? First though, I want to put this out there. I love Ciri, and almost more importantly, I'm very, very happy to be continuing in the Witcher world post-Witcher 3. It opens up a ton of possibilities I can't wait to talk about. That's not the purpose of this video though, so to get to the point, if you're anything more than a very casual Witcher fan, you've probably been seeing people say things like, the books say only boys can become Witchers, and Ciri surviving the Witcher trials makes no
Cirilla is not a real Witcher.
sense at all. And you maybe have also seen people saying the opposite sort of thing, that there are already female Witchers in canon, or that the Cat School is known to have created girl Witchers. I'll address that second type of claim first, which will be really easy because they're not true, with no gray area. Ciri aside, let me stress that part, Ciri aside, there are 0 female Witchers currently in game canon or canon, meaning the books. Nowhere in any of the 9 novels is a female Witcher ever mentioned, even in passing, and the same is true of the first 3 games. When people say that the School of the Cat trained female witchers, or that for another example that there was a woman named Dragonfly who became a witcher, they're doing that because they quickly googled female witcher, then read the Witcher wiki and didn't realize the source for the wiki is a pen and paper game that was released
Got him.
as a tie-in for a very low-budget 2001 Witcher TV show. A show that, by the way, the book author reviewed with one word, that word being obscene.
That's fantastic. I do vaguely remember this because in the lead up to The Witcher 3, there were some interviews that I had watched, of course, after the fact. And I do remember them asking about the show because this was like the Witcher show or Witcher games are blowing up, being huge. I think notably, was it The Witcher 2 or The Witcher 3 that they gave to Obama when Obama visited Poland? They gave like I think it was the games. I don't think it was the book. Maybe it was The Witcher 1. But like, this is a big thing in Poland and for their culture. It's like, was it The Witcher 2? Okay. Like, it's a big thing, a big deal for them. And that show is something that people like have a problem with. It's very funny.
The word obscene also reminds me of another more recent TV Witcher adaptation as well, but, well,
Yeah.
I suppose this isn't the time. To start shifting to the other perspective though, despite what you may have heard people confidently claim, the books never, and I mean never, say that there can't be female witchers, or that a girl surviving the trial of the grasses is impossible, or that the survival rate was 0%. Nothing like that is ever said. However, when Ciri is taken to Kaer Morhen as a child during the books, Lambert does say that a girl had never trained there before. And when witchers or their training get discussed in the books, the phrasing is often something like, for example, a quote from Geralt here, "The trial of the grasses is dreadful, and what is done to boys during the time of the changes is even worse." Or for another example, this is a dryad named Ethne speaking to Geralt, "After all, you witchers have been seeking boys designated by fate to be your successors." In the books, it's not that a girl couldn't survive the trials or that it's impossible, it's that they just don't try. They seek out boys for the profession, and that sort of gendered talk, or whatever you want to call it, carries forward all the way into Witcher 3.
That's just it. Not everyone made it. Lots of boys died here. Boys taken against their will.
I do want to point out, though, that in very recent post-Witcher 3 years, CDPR have kind of been laying the groundwork for female Witchers in other Witcher media. It's just gone unnoticed because, well, it's Witcher media that only a very small percentage engage with. For example, just a couple years ago, CDPR released a single-player Gwent game called Rogue Mage, which had a little story about the creation of the first Witchers by the mage Alzur. In that story, CDPR established that for the game canon at least, Alzur did experiment on a woman when attempting to create the first Witcher. But instead of at least somewhat taking to his experiments like all of his male subjects, the woman just died.
This fruitless
Oops.
attempt with the courtesan ingrained in the mage a prejudice that he would never shake.
That's the thing. Like, they don't come out and just do these things willy-nilly. Like, CDPR at least lays the groundwork. They prep for it, you know? But to be very fair, like, I think a lot of people freaking out about this probably are not playing this game. You know, I don't think they're playing Rogue Mage.
And from that day onward, of the many subjects exposed to his experiments, only a handful would be female.
Now, this does establish that even after the first woman's death, Alzur did give other women Witcher mutations, but just that it was a rare occurrence, only a handful of cases from that point forward, apparently. Ultimately, Alzur's first success with a Witcher did end up being a male human child, which then became the default base for a Witcher moving forward. Also worth mentioning is that in the current Witcher tabletop game, which is officially licensed and overseen by CDPR, it was again established that during Alzur's later experiments, which were done in groups, the girls he did include became ill much more quickly than the boys, and that they ultimately fared much worse during the later parts of the trial. Again, it's never said that every single one died or that it was never attempted again post-Alzur, just that most girls didn't take to the mutations particularly well, and certainly not as well as boys. Okay, to move on, I want to get to Ciri specifically, because she is an interesting exception in many ways, and I would almost argue that Ciri as a Witcher is a different topic entirely from the idea of female Witchers in general.
I mean, as a character, she's basically a walking exception to like every rule established in the world. Like, very much an exceptional character.
Before we get there though, I do need to take a quick second to thank the incredibly well-timed sponsor for today's video, which is the brand new Witcher 3 Naraka Blade Point update. If you don't know, Naraka Blade
Which,
Point is a very popular...
To be fair, it's a good tie-in. I'll give you that. I'll give you that, Neon. I actually do, unironically, really like Naraka. I do like Naraka. It's like a mainly melee-focused battle royale. It actually works pretty well. Ooh, Geralt's beautiful.
All with voice lines from the original actors and a ton of cool Witcher 3 cosmetics to unlock, like Arendite from Blood and Wine, the Caretaker's Spade and Donkey Ears from Hearts of Stone, and even Yennefer's Stuffed Unicorn, which can now be used by whichever characters you like, even Triss, which feels, well, not quite right. Anyway, if interested, you can try out Geralt in Naraka Blade Point for free. Just use the link in the description and you'll receive a free in-game voucher. And if you end up unlocking all 4 Witcher 3 outfits during the Witcher 3 event that's currently running, you'll also be able to redeem 2,100 in-game gold, meaning you'll be getting 3
Booyah.
outfits for the cost of just 1. Okay, to get back to Ciri.
Holla. Go download it with his link if you haven't already. Okay, go check it out. Got to represent.
And why she's such an exception, or even nearly a separate topic entirely from the could there be female witchers question, well, it's because in the books, Ciri is a very unique case, to put it mildly. She travels to Kaer Morhen under very unusual circumstances, and while there, she goes through full Witcher combat training for well over a year with 5 Witchers guiding her. Not only that, and this is something that is often forgotten, but while at Kaer Morhen, the Witchers feed Ciri special accelerant mushrooms and urban fusions that help her develop her strength and agility. They're the very same accelerants that all Witcher students take before going through with the actual Witcher mutations, and when Triss meets Ciri at Kaer Morhen, still during her training, Triss immediately notices that Ciri had already developed the internal fitness of a Witcher with the help of the mushrooms they'd been feeding her. Eventually, Triss even asks the Witchers to stop giving her them so often because she fears they might have side effects. Not as grave side effects as what the trial might do to Ciri, aka possibly kill her, but still side effects. All that is to say, if there was going to be a female Witcher, it should be Ciri. She's already received the training, she's already been enhanced to an extent, and even in the books, Ciri is referred to as being a Witcher many, many times by other characters, which, again, is something that from her literal journal entry to constant dialogue carries forward into Witcher 3.
Look, that's more or less what she looks like now. Or so our agents claim. Our little witch has grown into a young lady.
No, she can't be a woman. It's just like, again, I think some people sure maybe have bad motivations and are just looking to freak out over anything. But I do think a lot of people did play The Witcher 3 and just forgot some of the dialogue that was there. Okay. You know, like I do think that there was a lot like that, you know, where it's just, oh yeah, I forgot they already refer to her as a Witcher. It's already established, like, you know. I
No,
think
there's
that's a
really
big
no
part of
problem
it.
at all with Ciri being a Witcher, her taking on that job. And granted, I don't think most people have a problem with that part. The majority of Witcher fans love, or at least like, the Witcheress ending from Witcher 3, and I'll keep this vague, but Ciri's story in the books ends with her riding off into the sunset after saying that the world surely has a need for a Witcher girl like her. Now, it's more of an honorary title in the books, whereas she actually takes on the profession in the games, but being a Witcher, either in spirit or literally, is part of her character. There's no issue there. Where things get interesting, though, is the idea that Ciri, as a 20-something adult who is already far more exceptional than your average Witcher, has now decided, as of Witcher 4, to go through with the actual trial, the full Witcher mutations. Now, I will say there are a few quote-unquote problems with this I've seen pointed out that aren't really problems, at least lore-wise. For one, it's suspected by Triss in the books that the process of creating new Witchers was no longer fully remembered by the Kaer Morhen Witchers. If that's the case, how could Ciri do it, people say. Well, in that very same passage, it's also heavily implied that if Triss or Yen were given a bit of time in the Witcher's laboratory, where the Witchers still have all of the supplies to do the trial, that either of them would be able to figure out the process easily enough. I mean, in Witcher 3, Yennefer figures out and conducts part of the trial on Uma, and more importantly, the main reason the trial is quote-unquote forgotten is because when Kaer Morhen was attacked before the books, the mages who were helping Witchers with the mutation process died. By that time, Witchers were becoming unnecessary anyway. The games don't sell this point very well, but in the books there aren't many monsters left in the world, so creating new Witchers was pointless as there wasn't even enough work to go around for the existing Witchers. It's also worth mentioning that in the newest Witcher book from 2024, as of making this video, it's not available in English yet, but in the newest novel, it's also revealed that another reason Witchers stopped doing the trial was not because it was truly forgotten, but instead because the Witcher mutations, aka their physical supplies, were becoming less stable over time, and trial survival rates were actually dropping from the already low 30 to 40%. You do have to wonder if CDPR knew about that little bit of lore while writing Witcher 4. I mean, they have met up with Sapkowski recently, so maybe, but it doesn't really matter. Point is, the trial of the grasses being rediscovered, even if dangerous, is very believable, and that's not even to mention that there are several other Witcher schools out there, all with their own fortresses and trial knowledge, which is another possibility if Ciri isn't able to get help at the familiar Kaer Morhen. That's a really good segue, though, because another problem I've seen people mention is this idea that Geralt would never let Ciri undertake the trial. To this I say, if you've been
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that depends on how you play them, though.
saying that, please replay The Witcher 3. The entire point of Witcher 3's main quest and the choices that define your ending is Geralt coming to terms with the fact that Ciri is going to and needs to make her own choices, whether
If you pursue that ending, yeah. Well, I mean, it's pretty clear that's what's going to be the canon ending, is the one where Geralt is like supportive and trusts her to do what she needs to do. You can still make choices, like right before this scene or this shot right here, Geralt can have that line where he's like, no, it's a vital word, you're not doing that. I can't do a Geralt voice. So you can be much more of a hard ass, but it's pretty clear that the canon option is going to be the one where he's supportive. So it makes sense why they would pursue that.
Geralt likes them or not. If Ciri in The Witcher 4 decides she definitely wants to undertake the trial, then she isn't going to let someone else convince her otherwise, even Geralt. Now, I will say I don't think he would approve of the decision unless there's some really good reason, like, I don't know, Ciri developing a terminal illness and undertaking the trial as a last resort to make her immune to disease like Witchers are, but ultimately it's not Geralt's choice, or Yennefer's choice, or anyone's but Ciri's. As a reminder, Ciri is already 24 by the time of Blood and Wine, and of course is even older in Witcher 4. Really, I think the biggest pressure on Witcher 4 story-wise is not justifying how Ciri survived the trial, or how the trial was rediscovered. I mean, this is Ciri we're talking about. She has elder blood flowing through her veins, she is exceptional. No, what I think Witcher 4 really needs to justify is why Ciri would even want to go through the trial. Why someone who is already so extraordinary would put themselves through a process so dangerous even for ideal candidates, aka male children. Sure, CDPR could just take an easy path and say, I don't know, that Ciri discovered a new, safer process or something, but I don't think, or at least I'd hope they wouldn't go there. Personally, I will say that just thinking on it myself, I am in love with the idea that Ciri going down this path is her trying to run away from her destiny, from the prophecy that dominated her life throughout the books and Witcher 3.
Maybe, I mean, you could also just, looking at it from a video game perspective, there's plenty of stuff they could do where they're like, oh, a rift was torn open and now there's way more monsters, so we need more Witchers or more powerful Witchers or something. So that could kind of compel you to do it, give you more monsters to fight against, motivate players that way. So there's a lot of potential solutions to this where they can get around it, but I would agree with Neon that it's gonna be telling how they motivate it, because Ciri, at least at the end of what seems to be the canon ending of The Witcher 3, it seems like there would not be a reason why she would willingly go through with this. Like, it's not like she was struggling in fights at the end of The Witcher 3, you know? It's not like she was like, oh, I wish I had those mutations. As he alluded to, maybe there's like some illness or a disease where she needs it, or maybe the elder blood is affecting her in some way that the Witcher stuff will help with for some reason. So there's ways that they could write it to just get out of it easy. Oh, a new safe super duper thing. Turns out we were using 0.2 liters of this material. We needed 0.4, and now the trial is perfectly safe. Maybe they do something like that. I would wish they weren't, but it makes me wonder, do you think that they actually show like the trial? Do they show her becoming a Witcher in the game? Is that like part of it? I wonder if like the first act of the game or something is her going through those trials, or maybe you start as the Ciri at the end of The Witcher 3, and then they show something that pushes her into becoming a Witcher. But I think the point is, I hope, and I'm sure Neon hopes as well, that at least they address it. They could just hand wave it away, be like, no, she's a Witcher now, and just never really talk about it. And that would be sucky. If they're like, yeah, after she decided to go be a Witcher with Geralt, she decided to undergo the mutations like that. It doesn't work if you think about it.
If you haven't read the books or don't remember the small amount Witcher 3 tells you, well, to keep it short, Ciri, Ciri's daughter, or even Ciri's granddaughter, different characters have different interpretations, are prophesized to, well, to do a bunch of different things. To rule the world, to save the Unshay elves from extinction, in Witcher 3 to stop a big magic snowball because CDPR ran out of time when writing the final act of the game, whatever. The point is, Ciri's elder blood and the potential of it makes her of constant interest to people in power, or people who want power. Someone always wants something from her. They usually want to have full control over her, and she spent her entire life running away from her supposed destiny, which she hates. Now, that said, we don't see Ciri use her elder blood powers at all in the trailer, her teleportation, any of that, and I really wonder if in Witcher 4, whether Ciri's decision to fully commit to being a Witcher by undergoing the mutations is her attempt at escaping her destiny. Not just for herself necessarily, although maybe her powers are affected by the Trial of the Grasses, but also because she doesn't want to put the burden of being constantly pursued and used on her potential daughter, or her granddaughter, or her granddaughter's granddaughter, because it's never going to stop as long as her elder bloodline continues.
That's interesting. I mean, I guess, because that's the other elephant in the room, is like, how do you address or deal with her abilities? Because one of the things that, like, I think all of us immediately thought when we saw that she was going to be the protagonist was like, she's pretty damn powerful with like teleportation stuff, especially even just like in terms of gameplay, her dodges and long dodges where she just warps through space and time like that. It's pretty powerful. So how are you going to balance a video game like that? It's like having Superman at the beginning of an RPG. Like, how do you level that? Like, where do you go from here? And you could say like, oh, well, the mutations took those powers away, but then why on earth would she go through with the mutations knowing that that power could be very useful? And also, how would that work if how would the mutations remove the effects of elder blood? Like, maybe there's some way they could hand wave it away, but the easiest way to get around it is, or maybe not easiest, but an interesting way to get around it that Neon's alluding to is to have it be that she's trying to get away from her destiny. So she perhaps intentionally does not use those elder abilities. She just refuses to as a matter of principle. Or the process of becoming a Witcher actually removes those abilities, somehow affecting the blood or whatever, and therefore she chooses to go through with the mutations because it's going to affect her elder blood and abilities. And that's why she undergoes the mutations, because she wants to get away from it. I feel like there would have to be some story beat that we haven't seen, at least to justify that, because I don't feel like that's justified at the end of The Witcher 3, where she's that pissed off about her abilities and her powers, but maybe they could build to that. But yeah, it's a solid solution.
If you don't remember, going through the trial of the grasses through the Witcher mutations leaves a person sterile, unable to have children. And that, trying to escape her destiny and the burden her bloodline brings, that being part of the motivation behind Ciri deciding to go through with the mutations, well, in my opinion, that is a very dark, very interesting prospect for Ciri's character. In the trailer, we even see the Bauk, the monster she fights, which preys on fear and insecurities, tell Ciri that fate cannot be changed, that she can't change anything, which seems to really make her angry. And I hope Witcher 4 explores the dark side of Ciri we don't see in Witcher 3 really at all. In the books, Ciri has a darkness in her that would shock people who only know her from Witcher 3, and
Yeah, look at that. Ciri personifies evil. That's how I intended her to be. A monster, because almost everyone is trying to make a monster out of her. And it's definitely not what you would take away from The Witcher 3. Like, it's definitely not how you would read it.
I would love to see Witcher 4 confront that darkness. Anyway, if you can't tell, I'm very excited at the possibilities here. I mean, I haven't even touched upon the fact that Ciri is using magic in the new trailer, which she gives up in the books, but I will say that I believe that if CDPR think they have a strong enough story to tell to justify a new trilogy with Ciri, that they also have a good foundation for how that story begins. That said, I think that's all for me today. If you enjoyed this lore, fact-focused video and want to see more like it, consider leaving a like as it really helps my content get out there. And
Will do, my friend. Yes, everybody should go like and subscribe. Bada bing, bada boom. Neon is the GOAT. I think they clearly have an idea. Taking from that trailer, I get the impression that this is going to be tonally a very dark saga. I do not think this is going to strike the same tone as even The Witcher 3. And even the last shot of her saying only monsters, you know, there are only monsters here. Even that shot, you could interpret that as her embracing the monstrous side. So it's going to be interesting. But the point of the video, I think, is that there's nothing in the lore that directly precludes Ciri from being a Witcher. It's just unlikely. More difficult is going to be the justification for why she would want to undergo it, for why she would even bother with it. And I think Neon's suggestion that it's probably to try and escape her destiny or to try to control her destiny, especially given the lines that are delivered by the monster, that could make a lot of sense. So, takeaway, it looks pretty good and I'm excited. So what if we have a female character? It's a game. Yeah, no, I mean, I think some people honestly do just prefer playing one gender, sex versus the other. My wife has told me a bunch of times she just personally prefers to play games where she can play as a female character. It helps her get immersed more. She likes getting into the lore that way. That's what she enjoys more, is to be able to play as somebody with her same gender. As for other people, I don't personally care. I can play games either which way, but I do know some people, they do have preferences one way or the other. Beyond that, I think some people also are genuinely concerned about the lore implications because as they remember it, there are no female witchers, which seems to be true. But it's also like Ciri is a walking exception in the books. She's kind of written to be just one gigantic, but for her, you know, kind of character. And I can understand why some people might not like that. But after seeing Phantom Liberty, after seeing Cyberpunk and the quality of writing and presentation in those games, I'm pretty confident that it's going to be solid either way. I prefer playing female characters while I'm a straight male. It somehow helps with my suspension of disbelief. Interesting, Luxie. Yeah, I mean, I could see that too, where it's like, you can kind of get into it more if it's not trying to be super relatable or whatever. I could see that. He took my thing. Red flag.